In a very sneaking way, Dave Filoni, with the approval of Kathleen Kennedy no less, has officially changed Star Wars canon for the better. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't mean that they will be erased, the sequels but it does mean something else. It does mean that Star Wars is definitely moving into a new direction, especially considering that Dave Filoni has his own movie coming in a couple of years, and now we see what he is setting up because my God, officially, if you guys look at it, with 3 episodes of the Ahsoka series, Dave Filoni has managed to completely change the trajectory of the Star Wars universe, so much so that I don't think even the Star Wars sequels contributed as much as these 3 episodes. Of course, we know the Ahsoka series is between Return of the Jedi and Star Wars Force Awakens. Now, I know some of you guys have really deep feelings about the Star Wars sequel, but not to panic, because us not seeing Ahsoka, not seeing Sabine, not seeing Thrawn or Ezra in the Star Wars sequels does not mean what it means. It does not mean that they're dead or anything like that. It just might mean that we have a new Star Wars canon in our midst, and that is because the Ahsoka series has enough room to take the saga of Star Wars in unexpected places without worrying too much about the timeline. It's not going to be a complete retcon, a new timeline, as some were speculating. It's just going to be a new version of Star Wars, a Star Wars in a different galaxy. In this video, I'm going to outline exactly what the Ahsoka series has retconned so far, what Dave Filoni has retconned so far in Star Wars, and what does that mean for the future? Let's start with the Purrgil. So we know that they were introduced in Star Wars Rebels, and they were creatures who could travel through hyperspace. And it definitely seems that these creatures might have inspired Night Sisters and even some Jedi also, because as Balin says, the path to Peridia was talked about amongst the Jedi Order as well. This means that who knows what we will find in this new galaxy, because officially what we didn't know and essentially was retconned in Ahsoka Episode 3 is that it is now revealed the Purrgil can travel between galaxies as well. Huyang specifically describes intergalactic routes used by beings that could travel through hyperspace. Previously, the fact that Thrawn was confirmed to be in another galaxy strongly suggested that Purrgil could travel between the galaxies, but now it is officially confirmed. And how hard is it to have intergalactic travel? I mean, by God, just look at the Eye of Sion by Lady Morgan. How much dedication it requires to have that hyperdrive power to actually travel. We know that she will eventually succeed in getting Thrawn, because we see Thrawn on that bridge of the Eye of Sion in the trailer. So Thrawn will eventually connect with Balin and Lady Morgan, but what will they do afterwards? That's a complete mystery. We don't even have trailer footage to know what we will see past, I think, Episode 4. The weird thing about it, and Huyang specifically outlines this, is that another retcon, now we understand intergalactic travel was once much more common in the galaxy. This news by Huyang is weird, considering that such an event was never portrayed in any of the canon Star Wars stories. I don't think we even have Legends Star Wars stories where they talk about intergalactic travel. So down the line, something must have changed, or at the very least, as I said earlier, retconned. I mean, hyperdrive technology, hyperspace travel are some of the most common elements in the Star Wars universe. This begs the question, if traveling to another galaxy has always been possible, why did the Jedi or the Empire never used it during key moments in the Star Wars timeline? This is a big mystery, especially considering Emperor Palpatine was interested in the mysteries of the unknown regions. Sidious was of course smart enough to know that there could be unexplored powers and answers to questions about the Force itself in the unknown regions. They even talk about it in canon, that Palpatine felt some sort of a power in the unknown regions. He was interested. Back in the day, we used to speculate that this was Snoke. One of the reasons speculated is that perhaps the cost of intergalactic travel was just not worth it, especially when we talk about large-scale incursions. Then, without the proper maps, intergalactic travel is extremely dangerous, as we know, so these things might have played a role in why the Jedi and even Palpatine did not go on beyond their own galaxy. It was of course later learned that the Purrgil could it could travel this route, and now with the star map, they have an even better idea. Here's another interesting retcon. So now we know officially by episode 3 that there have been more Mandalorian Jedi than we were previously led on. That Ahsoka episode literally rewrote Mandalorian history and revealed that Tar Vizsla was not the only Mandalorian Jedi. Previously, that's all we've known. He was the creator of the Darksaber. He joined the Jedi Order more than 1,000 years before the events of the Skywalker saga, and it was always assumed that Vizsla was the first and only Jedi Mandalorian. We even had aspirations that Grogu would be a Mandalorian foundling that would become a Jedi, and he would be the second Mandalorian, quote-unquote, to become one. But Huyang specifically said in that episode that only a few Mandalorians have become Jedi in the Order's history, which now changes everything. This line confirms that at least a couple of other Mandalorians became Jedi throughout history, and while this is a significant Star Wars retcon, it makes sense that Tar Vizsla was not the only Mandalorian to join the Order. Jedi and Mandalorians were not always at odds with each other, and of course we know that anyone in the galaxy can be force sensitive. The only problem with the Mandalorians, and as Huyang says so as well, is their temperament. They're headstrong. They essentially do not have the criteria to become true Jedi. We go on to the next retcon, because with the introduction of Morgan Elsbeth, we now learn that not all the Night Sisters were gone from the galaxy. The first time we see a Night Sister after the Empire took over is of course Merrin from Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor, but we do not know what has happened to her at this point in time in Ahsoka. But we do know that there is now another surviving member of the Night Sisters. For those of you who don't know, the Night Sisters was completely decimated following the invasion by General Grievous. They were specifically instructed by Sidious to completely wipe them out. Asajj Ventress survived, however, Ahsoka takes place 30 years after Star Wars The Clone Wars, so presumably all remaining Night Sisters would be gone by now, but we now learn that Morgan Elsbeth is a Night Sister as well. So this leads me to another retcon, and this is the biggest one I think yet, is that Night Sister magic is perhaps confirmed to come from a different galaxy. So what we kind of understand from these episodes from Ahsoka and by watching Morgan Elsbeth is that the Force as we know it comes from this galaxy, whichever it is, but Night Sister magic comes from this different galaxy that they want to travel to. Episode 2 strongly hinted that the Night Sisters are not from this galaxy. They wield this green energy power similar to the Force, and for some reason the Night Sisters had a map to this other galaxy. In addition, Morgan knew exactly how to activate the map. This is what I think Dave Filoni is trying to tell us, is that we will have a completely fresh start, a new beginning of Star Wars canon. We will now journey to this new galaxy and derive new content from there. So as much as it is scary, I think that Lucasfilm have no choice but to give the reins to Dave Filoni and for him to start this new journey in this new galaxy where there's going to be different force powers, there's going to be different creatures, and perhaps different factions. It's going to be pretty interesting. These two other retcons are pretty interesting as well. And last but not least, I couldn't leave by not talking about Merrick. So whoever he is, whether you believe it is a Dark Ezra, which I do not believe at all, whether you believe it is Starkiller, or as I made a video about it, he is the Luke clone from Star Wars Legends, whoever he is, we do know at the very least that he is an Inquisitor. Another retcon right now is that not every Inquisitor, at least one Inquisitor, had survived after Darth Vader's death. By not seeing one in the Star Wars original trilogy, we had surmised that most of the Inquisitorius had been wiped out during their Jedi hunting days by the time the Battle of Yavin comes around and Luke comes into play. But now we see that at least one of them has survived, and that is Merrick. So for me, all these retcons and everything that Dave Filoni is trying to do with only 3 episodes, don't forget that we have a lot more episodes to go, it definitely means that this is why Dave took the reins with a new movie, and this is why they paused the movie franchise altogether. They want to lay the groundwork for a new galaxy in Star Wars and explore a completely new area. Get away from the Skywalker saga, get away from the Empire versus the Rebellion, the New Republic. They want to start fresh and tell new stories, and I think this is where it ultimately leads to. Dave Filoni will take us to a new galaxy where we will explore new mysteries and new storylines. Tell me all your thoughts down below.